I am here with Lights, and we're at San Diego Comic-Con talking about her upcoming album and comic book, which two integrated at the same time, which is really cool to see, called Skin&Earth.
Yeah.
Now, where did the concept come from? Obviously, you must be a comic book fan coming into this.
Yeah, definitely. I grew up loving both mediums. Always wished that they crossed over more. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of comic fans are music fans and vice versa. And I don't think we've seen the crossover genre happen enough. And I think I was just like, I got to do it.
Yeah.
I got to do this. So I got to put the time in and do it. I have no idea how, but I'm like, I'm going to try. So obviously, yeah, the comic is fully integrated with the music. It all goes in the same flow and storyline. Each song is inspired by that part of the story and the mood that's conveyed there. Lyrics make their way into the dialogue. And there's, 6 issues of the comic. Album coming out this fall.
Wow. So who do you reach out to getting into the comic book world and kind of finding your way through that?
Well, initially, I didn't know if I was going to even write or draw it. I was just kind of like, I guess I'll find someone to do the art. And I was going, I don't have enough money to hire someone, enough time to like convey this message to somebody. So maybe I'll draw it and then I'll see if I can hire someone to write it because I've never written it. So I actually went straight to the top and asked Brian K. Vaughan to write it because I'm a huge Brian K. Vaughan fan. And I, to be honest, I didn't really expect him to do it because he's Brian K. Vaughan. But in the process, and we went back and forth a bunch. He's an amazing person. And he said, like, you are a writer already, you can do this. And he gave me a little bit of advice on how he panels out pages and how, his limit of speech bubbles per page. And I really enjoy the flow of his comics and the readability of the comics. So I basically applied all of the same things that he applies to his comic writing in terms of the way he panels and paces. So that was sort of like my launch point. I was like, I guess I'm writing this. And just read a million books, like read Alan Moore's Writing for Comics, which is awesome. Like, there's so many tidbits in there that I applied. Tons of webinars online. I actually approached Jamie McKelvey. He's an artist on Wicked and Divine, which is a comic I love. And he would send me like screen stills of him working on his comic to show me how he layers. Because previously all my art was on paper. And I switched to the digital format. So I'm starting everything from scratch on a tablet.
Oh, wow.
Which is so much easier and so much better for the environment. You're not going through tons and tons of supplies and paper. So, it was just a learning process the entire time, reaching out to people that I love, reading books, watching tutorials and webinars, and just putting the work in.
Yeah. Was there any hesitation making this decision to integrate the comic books into it? Because some people like to categorize an artist as one thing, like you're a musician. That's what you should be doing.
I think that's why I wanted to do it. I think now more than ever, people are prepared to have mixed media projects. And if anything, it's almost required to have sort of a second or third provision to fans in order to incentivize them to listen to the entire record. I mean, we're in a day and age where people really only want to hear the singles or whatever's playlist on Spotify. So if you can give people a reason to listen to those album tracks, I'll do it. I'll put the time in and do it, because all these songs mean something to me and they mean something to the other artists that make them, but people just don't hear them. So, people are receiving this project so well because I think there's not really anything out there and it's nice to see something fresh. And obviously the crossovers happen a few times with like Coheed and Cambria and Kiss and Guar on Dynamite. They have comics which they don't draw or write, but they're characters in themselves, and it's sort of like another arm of their art. Gerard from MyChem obviously is involved in the comic world. He has his DC imprint, which is killer. But never by a woman and never in pop music. So
it's good to see both.
Yeah. Right?
Now you're doing, like you said, a little bit of the music will come out, an issue of the comic will come out, and it'll keep going back and forth like that. So as you're doing that, do you have this entire narrative and story in your mind already, or are you letting the comic inform the music and the music inform the art as you're going?
The project is done.
Oh,
so
okay.
it's completely finished, So the album will be out this fall.
Wow.
The last issue of the comic will be out in December. The last issue, I've finished inking and I'm just coloring the last 20 pages. It's like a double issue, it'll be really long.
Oh, wow.
But everything's finished. It was a very symbiotic creative process. I had this sort of base idea of the story and would go into songwriting sessions with that and say, this is the part of the story I'm going to write about today. This is the mood that I want this part to convey. And it became this like cinematic creation because you're like, you knew the mood. I knew the mood and the content, and I just had to create the song. And it was a matter of getting the right song. So actually say there's 12 segments of the story. that I wanted to write about, I would write 3 or 4 songs for each of those segments. Okay. So there ended up being 50, 60 songs, and we only pick one for each part. Wow. And so that's what it really boiled down to, because I think even though this is such a cohesive and interesting project, I wanted each to stand on their own, and I wanted this album to be something that people could listen to without knowing there's a story at all. And so I wanted great songs, and vice versa with the comic. I wanted you to be able to pick it up off the shelf and not be like, this makes no sense without music, you know? But together, they're like this super force.
Yeah. So if you decide to get in comic books, you must be on the geekier side like the rest of us. What are your fandoms, TV, movies, and comics? What do you enjoy?
Currently, with comics, reading Monstrous, Saga, Wicked and Divine, Lock and Key, Paper Girls, Brian K. Vaughan fan, right? Yeah. Bitch Planet, Sex Criminals. Yeah. God. Chip Zdarsky has to be the most hilarious person in comics. I don't know him personally, but he's hilarious. That's what I'm reading on. Descender as well, on a regular pull. And in shows, I mean, like Game of Thrones, The 100, Walking Dead, Westworld, Stranger Things.
100 is a very underrated show.
It's not, I mean, underrated to a degree, but like then you look at the panel, it's always packed out and crazy, and it's definitely got like a cult following. And I've been there from the beginning, and I'm a huge fan of the show and the characters.
Super good.
Yeah.
Super good. So lastly, since we are at Comic-Con, is there anything that you're aiming to see, or any people that you've met that you've super geeked out about? Or
I love Jim Lee. I think he did his spotlight on Jim Lee yesterday.
He did, but he has his drawing panel coming up still.
Is that tomorrow?
It's either today or tomorrow.
Because I've been to his drawing panel a couple of times, and it's the best. He's so cool. I had the pleasure of being actually escorted around the DC headquarters by Jim Lee personally.
Oh my God.
And it was just like this complete fangirl experience. So he's one of my favorite people in comics for sure. I would love to get to the Westworld and the Stranger Things panel, because I think that they're probably going to show some cool stuff from the upcoming Stranger Things, but those are impossible to get into for anybody. So I don't know. I think today I just have a long list of things that I want to buy.
Yeah.
So that will require a second suitcase as well. So I'll be getting that.
Get all the shipping ready.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you and meeting you.
Thank you.
Thank you.